All right. Okay. So my name is Kasey Lindstrom. I am the Utah project manager with Wildlands Network. And as perfectly summarized, I'm going to be talking about our fence removal and retrofitting project on the Paunsaugunt Plateau within the monument. So just a bit of background here. Across the western United States, networks of barbed wire fences are making it more difficult for wildlife to move freely across large landscapes. And although fences are important for livestock management, I won't be bad-mouthing cattle. I know where I'm at. They also, these barbed wire fences are creating significant barriers for wildlife seasonal and daily movement. For big game like mule deer, but also for elk and pronghorn, movement is essential for accessing food, shelter, and water throughout the year. And these impermeable fencing blocks wildlife from accessing these seasonal habitats with a variety of implications. Oh no.
You can go on the up arrow.
Yeah, up arrow.
It's so counterintuitive.
It kind of is. Okay. So these impermeable fencing, like I said, blocks wildlife from accessing seasonal habitats, which can cause serious injury and even death when wildlife becomes trapped in the wiring, can force wildlife to cross roads and thereby increasing wildlife vehicle collisions. And then also by fragmenting this habitat, it reduces a population's genetic diversity. Oh. See, now I've done it. So here's a picture of a fence line within our project area with bent fence posts, as you can see right there. And this suggests that a mule deer or some other animal attempted to cross this section of fence but got tripped up in the wire. So it's a very good example of the issue that this project is trying to deal with. And to address these concerns, wildlife managers, land managers, in partnership with other stakeholders are working to identify and treat these problem fences and replace barbed wires with smooth wires, changing wire height, and removing unused fencing altogether. The DWR has specifications published online for wildlife-friendly fencing to ensure that wildlife can cross fences safely while still effectively managing livestock. So here's an image directly from the DWR that shows these wildlife-friendly specifications. So the top wire should be no taller than 40 to 42 inches above the ground to allow adult deer and elk to jump over safely. Bottom wire should be at least 16 to 18 inches off the ground to allow fawns, pronghorn, and other similar wildlife to pass underneath. And there should be at least 12 inches between the top two wires to prevent entanglements. And it's preferred that the bottom wire is smooth and not barbed to, again, prevent entanglements. And top wires can be barbed, but should be minimized where possible. And ultimately, it's unnecessary fences should be removed where possible, especially within migration corridors and near, I keep doing this like accidentally, migration corridors and near water sources. And older fences that don't meet these specifications should be retrofitted to do so. Now, to provide a little bit of policy background, in 2018, former Department of Interior Secretary Zinke signed Secretarial Order 3362, which directed the DOI to coordinate and collaborate with state wildlife agencies to improve migration corridors and winter ranges for mule deer, elk, and pronghorn in the western United States through both state-led research and habitat restoration initiatives. And one of SO 3362's key objectives includes wildlife-friendly fencing projects to improve wildlife movement. And under SO 3362, the DWR identified the Paunsaugunt Migration Corridor as a statewide priority project in the state action plan. This mule deer herd is one of the most valued mule deer populations in the western United States. Each year, thousands of mule deer from the Paunsaugunt herd migrate between their summer range in the high elevation plateaus near Bryce Canyon and their winter range in the low elevation desert landscapes in the monument. This migration is crucial for the herd's survival to access food and to avoid deep snows in the winters. So this is a map of the migration corridor. The purple overlaid is the migration corridor itself, and then it's overlaid with the boundaries of the monument. I just need to not use this, get this out of my hand. And then the red is the boundaries of the monument, and then you can see US 89 in that dark red on the bottom. This kind of demonstrates the myriad of issues that this mule deer herd is facing. To give a little bit of a project overview, we partnered with Grand Staircase Escalante Partners, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Mule Deer Foundation, and UDWR's Dedicated Hunter Program to ultimately survey over 150 miles of fence in the herd's winter range, with the goal of identifying and prioritizing these impermeable fences and then treating these fences that are barriers to mule deer movement to maintain and enhance connectivity for the herd. This project was kind of divided into 6 phases, so I'll walk through phases 1 through 6. Oops. All right, so phase 1 of the project included surveying the 150 plus miles of fence. With the help of our partners, we surveyed and mapped fences and collected data on the permeability of these fences for mule deer as well as other wildlife. We had over 60 volunteers out in the field over the course of 2 separate events in November 2023 and April 2024. To survey and map, we use a survey form in ArcGIS field maps developed by DWR's Utah Migration Initiative. Here are some screenshots actually directly from the app. The data that we collect includes fence type, fence condition, fence location, wildlife found in or along the fence, and non-fencing structures such as cattle guards or wildlife escapes. We also include several photos to document condition and quality. Here's a picture of a fence line in the project area being measured to collect data on the height of the top and bottom wires. And as you can see, the measuring tool, I believe, stands at 42 inches, or 48 inches, which is several inches shorter than the top wire of the fence. And under these DWR standards, a wildlife-friendly fence should be no taller than 42 inches. So this is a great example of a fence that would be difficult for an adult mule deer to cross safely without getting tripped up in the wires, and does not meet these wildlife-friendly fencing specifications. And this is actually a fence line that will ultimately be retrofitted to meet those standards in future phases of the project. Phase 2 of the project included prioritizing at least 10 miles of fence out of the 150 miles that was surveyed and mapped. And to help with prioritization, we developed a visualization of the data, focusing on the height of the top and bottom wires of the fence and the overall quality of the fence. From this image, you can see a matrix. The pink represents the worst fences, so the top wires are above 42 inches and the bottom wires are below 16 inches. And the other colors represent varying permutations of these combinations. Green is actually the most wildlife-friendly fence. The top wires are below 42 inches and the bottom wire above 16 inches. As you can see, there are very few fences within this project area that meet those specifications. So after creating this initial visualization, we consulted with BLM and DWR to prioritize a minimum of 10 miles of fence that we would treat. So in this image, this represents the 12.3 miles of fence where we have decided to focus. 1.1 miles of fence are to be removed because they're unused old corral fences. So that would be this little rectangle area right here and this tiny little triangle right here along 89. And the remaining 11.2 miles of fence, again, do not meet those wildlife-friendly fencing specifications. Some sections of this fence are actually completely buried underground and don't even manage livestock effectively whatsoever. We have decided to focus on these segments for two reasons. The first reason is this area is adjacent to existing underpasses along US 89. So the total 12.3 miles of fence to be treated are on the north side of US 89, adjacent to several wildlife underpasses that have been previously built by UDOT and UDWR to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions. So from this image, you can see the three crossings, which are right there, and there, which I guess I pointed out earlier. And by improving the permeability of the landscape immediately adjacent to these crossings will help ensure that mule deer are able to use the crossings. I've realized that it's playing the video, so it's actually not my fault that it's moving. Oh my gosh, okay. Sorry, that made me feel better about myself. All right, and then the second reason is that these fences are right directly in the middle of the migration corridor in the winter range as identified by DWR's collar data. So this is not the best high-res photo, but this gray area right here is the Paunsaugunt mule deer herd's migration corridor. The yellow right here is the winter range, and then here is 89. US 89. So you can see right here, our project area is right in the middle of this high area of high use by the herd. Phase 3 of the project is currently ongoing. So right now we have about 30 cameras deployed along sections of the fence that will be retrofitted or removed to ultimately capture pre-treatment data so we can quantify the effects of the treatment on mule deer and determine how well improved fences increase permeability for the herd. Yes. Here's a photo of one of our cameras attached to a fence post and pointing down the fence line, hopefully to capture mule deer and other animals interacting with the fence. Here's a map that shows the location of all 30 cameras currently deployed in the project area. So our future project phases, these are going to be happening starting in late May. They're upcoming stages of the project. Sorry. So phase 4, fence retrofitting and removal. Ultimately, our plan is to remove the 2 smaller fence segments that I pointed out earlier, and the remaining segments will be modified to ensure they conform with DWR's wildlife-friendly standards. In late May 2025, with the help of volunteers from our partners, we will be removing the bottom wire of the 11.2 miles of fence and then removing those 2 sections of fence entirely. A contractor will then be retrofitting the remaining 11.2 miles of fence to meet those wildlife-friendly fence specifications. Phase 5 of the project are post-treatment monitoring. So after the 11.2 miles of fence are treated, treated during the migration from early October to mid-April, we'll redeploy the cameras to again capture the effects of the modifications. And then in the spring and summer of 2026, we'll be taking down the cameras and analyzing the data and wrapping up the project. To reiterate, these are the goals of the project, but ultimately is to improve connectivity between the Paunsaugunt mule deer herds summer and winter range by removing and repairing those impermeable fences. Now, bear with me because I am a lawyer, I am not a scientist, so I'm gonna try and talk through some science. At the individual animal level, studies show that there are 6 behavior types that migratory ungulates, such as mule deer, have in response to crossing barriers, such as fences. There's quick cross, average movement, bounce, back and forth, trace, and trapped. Normal movement behaviors include quick cross, where an animal can cross the fence quickly, safely, and average movement, where the animal does not change movement behavior significantly whatsoever. And hopefully these videos will play, but here should be 2 example. I don't know how to, is there a play button? Oh, okay. So these are examples captured of our camera, by our cameras of quick cross. Here's another one. All right. And so altered movement, that middle area of the diagram, includes bounce, where an animal moves away from the fence, and back and forth, where an animal moves back and forth along a fence. and trace, where an animal moves along the fence looking for a potential spot to cross safely. So here's an example of trace. Here's another example of trace. And then here is an example of bounce. All right, and ultimately our expected project outcomes. These are the type of behaviors, that the type of data we hope to collect with the cameras, monitoring pre and post treatment. This monitoring will help quantify the effects of treatments on mule deer and determine how well improved fences increase permeability for migrating animals. So after retrofitting and removing the prioritized fences, we expect to see a decrease in altered movement, such as tracing and bouncing, and an increase in normal movement, such as quick crossing, by the herd. Ultimately, an increase in normal movement is expected to improve mobility and therefore improve connectivity for the herd between their summer and winter ranges. Thank you. If you have any questions, there's an email.